What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Adventure Outpost, What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Adventure Outpost, your hub for all things movie related. In today's adventure, we are going to be continuing our series where we are looking at the best movies since the year 2000 at the turn of the century, trying to see just all the classic gems that we've gotten so far in this new millennium. In our last video, we did the action genre. So if you haven't checked that video, go check it out now. I'll link them down below so you can go and check that one out. It was our 50 best action movies of the 21st century since the year 2000. So for tonight's video, we will be continuing along with the genres, and now we're going to be taking a look at the wonderful world of animation. And that's right, we will be counting down our 50 best animated movies since the year 2000. Now, once again, this is not a total list. This is not a definitive list or anything of the sort. This is simply my list of my favorite movies that have come out since then. Clearly, your lists are going to be completely wrong. So, as always, feel free to take it or leave it. If you enjoy what you've seen, awesome. Give it a like. Let's hear a comment. If you don't, you think the list is rubbish, cool. Move on with your life. It's your world. I'm just living in it. But we're going to waste no more time, and we're going to dive right into the list, and we're going to kick it off at number 50 with a movie from the year 2002, and that is Ice Age. I remember seeing this movie in theaters as a young whippersnapper. I think I was 11 or 12, and this was such a fun movie. Obviously, the movie ends up getting bogged down by the relentless amount of sequels and just franchising that they did to this series, but you cannot take away how much fun this original was. Scrat wasn't annoying. It was still just a fun little squirrel trying to get his nut, and the fun little adventure that the rest of them go on trying to return a Native American young child to its company is just a pure delight. This was just a fun movie back when it came out, and it still is just a fun one today. After that is a more recent movie. We're taking our first Pixar movie. They're probably going to be the ones that we're going to see show up the most here on this list, and that is the movie Luca. This movie was just a wonderful film for me. I loved it. It was just such a good look at just a turbulent time in your life when your hormones are firing, you're trying to figure out your world in your life when you're just hitting that teenage age. And it follows these two boys who become friends, and they have a wonderful summer where they just learn the power of friendship and what it means to really make a friend of your own outside of just like family friends, and you really find your place out in the world through these eyes with you and your best friend. It's just a fun, delightful film. It's a great movie about friendship. It'll always make you want to just go back and just look at all your friends and just be like, it's one of those movies that after you just want to call your buddy up and be like, I love you, bro. Love you, man. Next after that is the hilarious, irreverent Sausage Party. This is a movie that is just one long running joke, but God, do they really just pull everything they can out of it. It is a movie about a group of food that figures out what happens after they're purchased from the shopping mall, and it is just absolutely over the top and hilarious. Edward Norton as Sammy Bagel Jr. is like one of the funniest things ever. This is just a filthy, filthy fucking masterpiece. It's so funny. After that is the movie that we're all still trying to get out of our heads, all those fucking songs that are just living rent-free in your brain, and that is the first Frozen. This movie was fucking everywhere when it came out. I remember it just being just a fucking sleeper hit, just destroyed at the theater. Like, I had no idea what to expect out of this, and then it just blew all expectations out of the water and just did so much fucking business, especially at my theater, and everyone just fucking singing all those songs. Let It Go, still trying to get rid of that goddamn song out of our heads, just bop after bop. What a fun movie that this one was. I hate the second one, but this one is a lot of fun. Pixar jumps in again next here right now, and it is the only one of this franchise that I can actually stand. Actually, no, I like the third one. The second one's really the only one that I absolutely cannot stand, but that is the first Cars movie, and this movie is just a lot of fun. It's a great movie that just shows you the ego-driven Lightning McQueen as he figures out there's more to life than just winning races and looking cool, and he gets to become the complete package as he tries and gets that last victory, winning that cup at the end. This is just like a fun little coming-of-age movie for Lightning McQueen, hanging out in Radiator Springs. It's just an adorably fun movie. Up next after that is another Disney movie, and that is Atlantis, The Lost Empire. We follow Milo as he gets a ragtag bunch of people trying to find in search of that lost city of Atlantis. This is just one of those peak mid-2000s Disney movies, right at the end of the golden age, right before they were about to just sink into absolute mediocrity. This is one of those last like really good ones that they put out. I believe it was like 01 or 02 that this one came out, and it is just loads of fun. I would love to see this one. If you really have to do your live action remakes, like where's my Atlantis, The Lost Empire one, man? Like, give me some deep cuts. After that is a Netflix movie from last year, and that is The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is just a wildly fun movie where it follows a family on a road trip that end up having to save the world when robots rise up and try and take over. It is just irreverent and a whole lot of fun. The characters are just zany and hilarious. Danny McBride is the dad especially. It's just a wildly fun time, and this was just one of the sleeper hits from last year. I was pleasantly surprised by how good this movie was. Talking about songs that you can't get out of your fucking head, up next we've got Encanto. This was just another big Disney movie. Obviously, it didn't do crazy in theaters, but dear God, did it clean up on Disney Plus, just staying in that top 10 for viewing for just ages. They're still singing We Don't Talk About Bruno. That song was never just get out of your head. Lin-Manuel Miranda, you son of a bitch. He's just so good at writing bops that we're still trying to get rid of him. This movie is a lot of fun. I think this is a very sweet and fun movie. It's one of those ones, it's not going to hit the heights of some of the like greatest of all time of animation movies, but this is a movie that is a lot of fun. It's super adorable, and you just have a good time with it. It's one that's just like, you're just like, yeah, that was just effortlessly enjoyable. Up next is a movie that, much like Ice Age, would spawn a large franchise that would have a certain character in it that I would want to kill myself with every time I saw them after a while, and that is the first Despicable Me movie. This movie is a lot of fun. I remember when it first came out and I caught it and I just really liked it. I think Steve Carell's Gru is really good, and his whole relationship dealing with the kids is great. It's those goddamn minions that I can't stand. But in this movie, they were somewhat tolerable simply because they are the actual side characters that they should be, and they had yet to become that absolutely stupid running joke that they would push to the forefront in later sequels and their own spin-offs. I absolutely can't stand the minions, but they're at least stomachable in this movie. After that's our old panda, baby, Skadoosh. That is the first Kung Fu Panda movie. This movie is just so much fun. Jack Black as a lovable panda that's gonna learn Kung Fu, like, fuck yeah, sign me up, man. Like, that's absolutely great. Rounding it out with an absolutely stellar cast of people, from Dustin Hoffman to Seth Rogen, Angelina Jolie, Lucy Liu. There's just so many people in this movie, and this is just such a fun and enjoyable ride, just anchored by an amazing Jack Black performance. After that is a movie that came out right as we were trying to get back into theaters post-COVID, and that is Raya and the Last Dragon. Movie that kind of suffered at the box office due to when it came out, but found itself a nice little viewing window on Disney+. I think this movie is a lot of fun. I think it's a super enjoyable world. I love the world building in it. I think it is a really fun adventure for the main character. Awkwafina is not that annoying in it either. She actually works really well as the dragon that teams up with young Raya to help save the day. This is just another one, much like Encanto, that's just a fun, reliable movie from Disney when they needed to be putting out fun and reliable movies to get people back into the cinema to watch them. After that, I think, is our one and only stop motion movie on this list. Actually, no, wait, no, there is one a little bit later. This is one of two stop motion movies on the list, and the first one is Chicken Run. This is just a stupidly silly movie, but it is so much fun. Following a group of chickens that are just trying to escape from the coop when they have just these wild people that I think are trying to like kidnap the chickens at one point, or they're learning to like fly. It's one of those just nonsensical movies, but it's just so funny and enjoyable that you just can't help yourself but just be swept up and taken along for the ride. It's just hilariously silly, and I love it. And speaking of stop motion, I don't know why I said it would be later on this list, because it's actually fucking next on this list, and that is the Netflix movie Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And just an absolutely sumptuous, amazingly, incredibly well done visual tale of Pinocchio done like only Guillermo del Toro can do. It loses a little points just because I can't fucking watch any more Pinocchio movies, but goddamn it, the visualness of the movie and just the way that they craft the story and build it and show all those images just helped absolutely earn itself a spot on this list, despite me never wanting to see another fucking Pinocchio adaptation. Switching up the format, next is Lilo and Stitch. We've got a lovely little VHS here to show off for it. I love this movie. I remember when it came out as a kid, I would watch it all the time. The scene still to this day when freaking the Bubbles shows up to like I think he's like, what is it, the family, I don't know why I can't think of the word right now. The people that come and check and make sure that the person living there is okay for the kids. Child Protection Services, CPS people. That's what it's called. There's your words, my man. I'm sorry, it's late. Daddy can't think anymore. But yeah, when Bubbles shows up and he comes to check in on Lilo, and Stitch just walks up with a book and just throws it like point blank in the Bubbles' face and just smashes his nose and his sunglasses in, I fucking cry every time. Like, that is peak cinema right there. It helps that this movie is buoyant by some great performances in it. I love the relationship between Lilo and her sister. I think it works so well together. It's just a fun and hilarious hilarious story. The Elvis references in it are always a classic, and this is just a fun, enjoyable romp. After that is the world nuclear family. That is the Simpsons movie. God, who would have realized that still after so many years that we would still love and cherish a Simpsons movie, and that it would actually even be good after how many fucking seasons were out before they even decided to make this movie. I remember seeing this, I believe I was a freshman in college again, because I think this was, what, 2007? No, it was 2007. So I just graduated. Yeah, just graduated high school and was going into college when this movie came out. I still watched The Simpsons on TV and I loved it, so I was still excited for the movie. I love The Simpsons. It always cracks me up, even though the episodes are well lesser in quality compared to what they once were. There are still always one or two moments in each episode that still crack me up like ungodly and have just such like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. It's hilarious. This is an institution and it is something that everybody should always watch. After that is another unsung great Disney movie right from that end of the golden age, right before they started releasing crap, and that is The Emperor's New Groove. Just a movie that was just so hilariously reverent and just like in on the joke that it was just so unlike Disney when this movie came out. Like, it was just so hilariously classic. Putting David Spade as a llama and he's gonna team up with John Goodman, it's just hilarious. And then fucking just Patrick Warburton as Kronk is just a match made in heaven. Like, he just made that movie so well. There's so many hilarious just like little bits and one-liners in this movie. It just absolutely cracks me up. I love this movie. A DreamWorks movie hits up next here on the list, and that is The Road to El Dorado. This was just an absolute classic movie. I loved this movie growing up as a kid, and I realized as I got older it was because Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio were the writers for it. Two of my favorite writers of all time. They also wrote The Mask of Zorro. If you've seen my previous video talking about making a third Zorro movie, that is written by those two lovely gentlemen. They also were responsible for the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. They did uncredited rewrites on Aladdin. They did Small Soldiers. They did every movie that you love, that you grew up with, they are invariably responsible for. Like, that's how good they are. And this is just a hilariously fun movie. With our leads is Kevin Kline and who the fuck is the other one? Why can't I think of it? Even on the back it doesn't say. We're trying to look here. And it's going to tell you no. It's going to show you nobody. That is absolutely fucking hilarious. Well, Kevin Kline is one of them. I forget who the other fucking guy is. But this is just such a fun movie. The two of them find El Dorado, and it just follows them as they help try and keep other people from finding it, and it's just such a fun movie. Another movie I saw in high school when it came out, I remember going with all of my friends to go see it, because this is another one. We watched the television show religiously growing up as a kid, so of course when they made the movie we had to go see it, and that is the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. This movie is just hilariously stupid. It's just so funny. I love the bit where they try and make it that like them going and eating a shitload of ice cream is like getting hammered for them. The good old goofy goobers. There's just so much stupid, irreverent fun in this movie, and I love SpongeBob. I just love how like hilariously like over the top some of the jokes are, and how hilariously like innuendo a lot of the jokes can be. Like, it's just one of those just like great Nickelodeon. It's probably like the last amazing Nickelodeon cartoon, especially at least for my generation. And up next after that is actually one of the newest animated movies to be released in theaters, and that is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This was a movie that it was just absolute loads of fun. I actually hated the first. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't good. I wasn't a fan of the first Puss in Boots movie, so I was not really excited or caring that all about this new one. Then I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I was actually like really into the visual style that this movie like used, and I was like, oh, this movie might actually be a lot of fun. And it is just so much fun. Antonio Banderas, absolutely fantastic as Puss in Boots. The movie is so funny, has so many great running gags in it, and it just, so visually, I can't talk enough about how good this movie looks. The scenes with, there is a wolf who is the incarnation of death that's hunting Puss in Boots the entire movie. His visual style whenever he shows up is so freaking intense and incredibly well drawn. It's amazing. I fucking love it. I can't wait for this movie to come out on physical media so I can watch it again. It was that much fun. It might even shoot up on this rankings as the years go on and I get to watch that movie more and more. It is just such a fun ride. Up next after that is Cloudy Johnny with a Chance of Meatballs too. This is a movie that just lives on its food puns, and goddamn does it get me every time. It probably didn't help that the first time I saw this in theaters, I was high as a kite, and every food pun cracked me up beyond repair. I just died, and it still gets me every time. Like when they're just like, oh, there's a leak in the boat, and then it cuts to the boat, and there's just like an actual piece of like leak in there. Like I die. I'm like, this is the best movie of all time. I fucking love it. It kills me. Up next after that is The Adventures of Tintin, just an absolutely stellar movie that only Steven Spielberg is capable of. It's just so well done. The one shot where they're escaping from like this really like seaside area with like a map that they have to get is just so well done and fantastic. It's just like classic Spielberg. This is just such a fun adventure movie. You should absolutely check it out. It's a shame that we never got another one of these. Peter Jackson, come on, you never got your turn, man. We need it. After that is Monsters University. Who would have thought that making a prequel for Monsters Inc. would be the way to go, and to have it be these two meeting in college and how they became friends, and just making a college frat boy movie was the way to go. But it absolutely was stellar, and I fucking love it. This movie cracks me up. The bit every time where the kid's mom drops him off and she's like, I'll just be here listening to my music, and it's fucking Mastodon. Like, it gets me every time. I die. Next after that is The Incredibles 2. I am a huge fan of this movie. This was a movie that my fiance would probably never want to watch again because I would put it on so much. I have a running theme where like I'll put a movie on at night where I'm just like needing background noise to like while I'm doing whatever, or I'm just laying down on my phone before going to bed or whatnot. And there was like 2 months straight where all I was doing was putting on The Incredibles 2 over and over again at night to fill that void. The whole running section where Mr. Incredible is just trying to raise his kids is like the funniest shit ever, and I could watch it so many times. I fucking love this movie. It is an absolute blast. After that is one of the newer Pixar movies, that is Turning Red. This movie was just an absolute, just fun time. It's so great. I really enjoyed the idea that they wanted to take on a girl reaching puberty and dealing with getting with her period and everything, and encapsulate that visually by her turning into a giant red panda. That is a very clever idea, and it's just such a fun way that Pixar just knows how to do, of taking these really adult themes and turning them into animated movies that help not only just like make us laugh and make us cry and enjoy, but they teach you a little bit something along the way. Like, Pixar are just absolute legends at doing that, and this movie is just a really fun time doing it. Up next is Kubo and the Two Strings. This movie, I guess this is another stop motion movie, right? I'm pretty sure this is stop motion. I could be wrong though. I haven't watched it in a hot minute, but the hot minute that I did watch it, this movie was fucking incredible. I remember seeing it in theaters and be blown away by it. I didn't even know anything about this movie. My buddy was just like, yo, you want to go see Kubo and the Two Strings? And I was just like, go see a movie? Like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And I was blown away. I was like, dude, this movie was fucking incredible. It's just so great. Like, stellar cast in there. You had Charlize Theron, Matthew McConaughey, all the voices, everyone's perfect in it. It's just such an incredible story. It's just visually just magnificent, and I fucking love it. At the halfway point now, we kick off number 25 with Finding Dory. I love this movie. I know a lot of people were just really not fans of this and like didn't really think it needed to exist at all. And I think this is an absolutely stellar movie. I think it not only does it deserve to exist, but it's a great movie that builds on Dory, and we really get into the nitty gritty of her and just see that beautiful life that she has led and everything that's brought her back to her new family and everything. And it's also really funny. I think everything going on in the Institute is just a whole lot of fun. I think a lot of the side characters are just really hilarious around this time, and I think the ending is just so balls to the walls over the top that it just makes the movie. Like, the fact that they just pretty much steal a van and drive it back into the ocean is the funniest fucking shit to me of all time. Like, I love it, and if they come up with another idea to do another one, I'm all on board for it, because I love this world, I love these characters. These movies are just comfort food for me. Up next after that is How to Train Your Dragon 2. Absolutely stellar. This is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I think DreamWorks hit a fucking knockout home run when they got these How to Train Your Dragon series, and all of them have just been absolutely just fucking incredible. Gerard Butler in this is amazing. Getting all of these great Scottish actors and then just having Jay Baruchel as the main dude is like so funny to me that they didn't get another like Irish dude to play him. But it works. It's great. Toothless is adorable as ever. I love that we get to meet you get Gerard Butler's long lost wife coming back in this. I think it's Cate Blanchett, if I'm not mistaken. There's just this has the great meme in it with Gerard Butler when he's like, "You're as beautiful as the day I lost you." There's just so much great stuff going on in this movie, and it's just so wonderfully done. We've got Wreck-It Ralph, just an absolutely hilarious good time. Who would have known that, like, if they were like, we need a movie that's going to be just an ode to those old video game arcades you used to play in as a kid, but god damn it, did it work, and this is just such a fun movie. Following John C. Reilly as Wreck-It Ralph as he decides he doesn't want to be a bad guy anymore and tries to find his way to earn to be a good dude. This is just a hilariously fun movie. There's so many great cameo and Easter egg references in it. It's just so much fun. The whole thing when he's in like the support group is like, just because you bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. He's like, thanks, Zangief. It's just like hilariously silly shit like that just makes movies for me, and I love this movie. It's just chock full of those moments. We've got one of Pixar's most a beautiful movie done by Pixar next with Soul. This movie is just stellarly fantastic, as only Pixar is able to do. It follows this man Joe as he is just hurtling towards past all of his life moments, as he's just trying desperately to create something and make something of himself, that he forgets to realize that he has to enjoy the little moments and all the pieces of life that come along to it. This movie is a beautiful movie that only Pixar can do, because I love the way that it inspires its message into you, where it's just because like you didn't make it as a piano player, that you're not the most successful, you're not the most famous or anything, like it doesn't mean that it didn't have value. It doesn't mean that it wasn't important to you, or that it didn't earn, or it didn't make your life worth living. And that is a huge important thing, I think, for people, especially creative people that are always struggling in that world, to try and hit that moment where they're going to get known and they want to get, like, I think anybody who goes through those types of things like us, where we're writers, directors, creative types, artists, anything that we do, we live in that world where we're defined by, have I made it by this age? Am I doing this right? When do I give up? Or when? And it's stuff like that you can't look at. Like, just even if you never make it, it still had value to be a part of and to do. And this movie was just a beautiful movie that helped shed some light on that message for people. I love it. It's just fantastic. We've got Big Hero 6. It's just a great movie. Baymax right there, my healthcare professional, adorable little guy that he is. Fucking met him at Epcot. Wonderful soul. Really treats all your wounds perfectly. This is just such a fun movie. It's just so great. Absolutely stupid hot aunt that this kid has. Man, freaking Disney and Pixar just know how to make those just stellar dump truck of a hot drawn characters. My lord. I mean, seriously, watch this movie and tell me that she's not. Like, Jesus Christ. This movie is just so much fun. It's just a great movie. I'm waiting for my sequel. Where's my next one? This movie was so good, and it's such a shame that we haven't gotten more out of it yet. I want more from Big Hero 6, please. Up next, we've got Zootopia, just a classic animated film that was just such a fun just adventure. Disney is so good at bringing those anthropomorphic worlds to life and just really finding fun and adventurous ways for them to thrive in. And this is just an insanely just fun world, just inhabited by animals, and we're following a bunny cop as she's just trying to make it in the world and show that even the lowliest of animals can still save the day. It's just a fun movie. It's a great movie. Teaches you a little something along the way, as all the great Disney animated movies do, and you can do a lot worse than Zootopia. The end of the trilogy is up next. We've got How to Train Your Dragon 3: The Hidden World. Just another just fun adventure in the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. These movies are just so much fun. Freaking love Toothless. I've loved this journey, following along with these characters. This movie just had me choking up by the end of it. It's just such a beautifully well done franchise. I freaking love it. I'm so happy that they've had the restraint to not do another one, and they've just let this trilogy live as is, because it is one of the best trilogies. Not even animated trilogies. You just talk trilogies. This is one of the best trilogies of all time. A movie that came out of nowhere to wow us all is the Lego Movie. Just a fun, over-the-top movie that just reminded you what it was like to play with your toys when you were a kid. The fact that the ending of this movie is that it's literally just a kid wanting to play with his dad's Lego collection, and they eventually learn to play with the collection together. It's just beautiful. It's just such an irreverent and just fun meta movie. It's just fantastic, and it just makes you want to play with your toys again. Lin-Manuel Miranda and his goddamn catchy song Strike Again. We've got Moana, just an absolutely fun tale about this girl Moana as she sets out to take the heart of Te Fiti and restore its properties or I think as their properties, or return and protect the ocean or whatever it is. I don't remember. It's been a hot minute. But this movie is just so much fun. The Rock, fantastic in it. The songs, so goddamn catchy. This is probably the best collection of songs that he's written from top to bottom, at least in the animated movie realm. I've never seen Hamilton, so I couldn't tell you from there. But at least animated movie-wise, I think this one is the absolute gold standard that he's put out. Oh, one of my this movie blew me away when I first saw it. I didn't actually see it in theaters. I didn't see it till way down the line, because I remember when it first came out, I was like, I don't know so much about that. And then I ended up seeing it when it was on home video, and I was like, dude, this movie is so good. Why did I not want to see that? And that is Rango. Johnny Depp as Rango. Just a fun, silly Western movie set about a lizard that gets knocked out of his terrarium in his family as they're going on a cross road trip, and he ends up just stuck in this desert town, and he pretends to be a sheriff, and he gets wrapped up in the whole conspiracy that's going on in the town, and he meets all these colorful cast of characters. This movie is just wild and fun and just so different than what you normally get in your animated movies. Like, I fucking love this movie. A movie that a lot of people seem to just hate on, and I don't get where the hate is. For me, I personally think it is another fantastic entry into the series, and that is Toy Story 4. I know a lot of people do not like this movie because they don't like the trajectory of Woody in this movie. They think that it is absolutely criminal that Woody would turn against his friends, but I never looked at it as him turning against his friends and leaving his friends for a new adventure. To him, it was time for him to move on, and he knew that his friends would firmly be safe in the hands of Bonnie and their home. But for him, as the type of person that he was never going to be able to stay in that realm and be the kind of toy that Bonnie wanted him to be. That just wasn't who Woody was. So Woody is a character and a toy that puts toys where they need to be, that helps toys find homes, that help toys understand what it means to be loved. He could not be a toy that's just going to hang out and just be one of the other toys in Bonnie's collection. And Buzz knew that. The other toys knew that. That's why he said at the end that it's okay, that we'll be okay, that Bonnie will be okay. They were giving Woody permission to be who he is. That's a beautiful thing. That's another thing of a lesson to teach you, that you're not always going to follow along with your friends throughout their journey. Your journey is going to take you to separate places, but you will always have those moments that you guys had to it. And I think a lot of people were against it because it was, I think, a moment that they don't want to think of or they don't want to see within themselves, but it's something that is a natural part of life. And I think it's a beautiful message, and I really enjoyed this movie because of it. Pixar with another masterpiece next, and that is Coco. This movie following a kid as he journeys to the land of the dead and ends up coming along a colorful cast of characters as he tries to find a way to get out of there. This movie, when it came out, just floored me. I was just like, man, Pixar can do fucking no wrong, man. They are just incredible on anything they do, and this is just one of those movies that's just so effortlessly enjoyable and beautiful and fun. And again, they are just classics at putting those endings that were just going to tear at your heartstrings and just like have you sobbing, and this movie is just par the course for that. Up next, we've got Tangled. This is another movie I didn't see when it first came out. It was one of those ones that I didn't think I was like needed to get out and see. Then I saw it on home video release, and I was like, dude, this movie is fantastic. Like, it's just fun. It has some great songs in it. The song "I Saw the Light" is a jam. It's one of the best jams Disney's put out. It's so good. I think the two of them work really well together. The whole story is fun. It's just so enjoyable. It's one of those movies that just effortlessly had me having a smile on my face the entire time. I love this so much. I feel like it gets underrated. Not a lot of people talk about it. It just ended up, I feel like, coming in under the radar because I feel like it came out just shortly after Frozen, or right around when Frozen did. So obviously Frozen took all of the hoopla and all the press, so this one kind of fell to the wayside. But this movie is just stellar, and I think the better of the two. Another Pixar banger as we barrel towards the top 10. We've got Up, just another just fucking fantastic movie that just only Pixar knows how to do. At this point, I'm just talking ad nauseum about how well Pixar is at making their movies and just how well they can consistently pull at your toes, at your heartstrings. They just know exactly what they're doing. They're probably one of the best just storytellers on the planet, and every movie they make is just so unique and original and fun and inventive, and Up is no different. I mean, it's about an old man who gets a whole bunch of balloons that just lifts his house and takes them to the Amazon. Like, that's just so inventive and clever, and it's just such a fun and wild ride. I love this movie. There's so many fun, zany gags in it. Of course, it always tugs at your heartstrings. It's just so effortlessly enjoyable. And just outside of the top 10 now, we're sitting pretty at number 11, Pixar Strikes Again, and that is the first Incredibles movie. I remember seeing this movie in theaters as well and just fucking loving it. It's just such a fun movie. Just pretty much Disney being like, Pixar being like, what if we made the Fantastic Four? And they were like, fuck yeah, do it, man. Like, knock yourselves out. And it's just so much fun. Mr. Incredible, great in it. Freaking Samuel Jackson is Frozone, just so much fun in it. Jason Lee as the villain buddy. Like, there's just so much good stuff in this movie. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best superhero movies made. Like, just ignore it, just animated movies. One of the best superhero movies. It's just that much fucking fun. We're almost there. We made it to the top 10. If you've stuck around this long, I appreciate you. You're a king. Pat yourself on the back. Enjoy this next top 10 that we're getting. We have now Stellar. This is the best of the best for me. These are some of my favorite animated movies. I've watched all these movies gajillions of times. I love all of these. There's not a blemish amongst them. So I'm pretty much, it's another one of those where it's like I feel like I'm just repeating myself because all of these are just, animation is like one of my favorite genres. I love animated movies. They're just so great. I feel like I've been repeating myself a lot throughout all of these because they're just such top tier. If there's one genre that's really thrived in the 21st century, it is the animated feature. But I'll stop rambling. We'll kick it off. Kicking it off in the top 10, we have Shrek. This is just an absolute fantastic movie. I remember seeing it in theaters, being blown away by it. It's so much fun. It just has such great innuendos, the over-the-top humor. There's just so many great, funny moments in it. Mike Myers as Shrek is fantastic. Eddie Murphy as Donkey is fantastic. Cameron Diaz, John Lithgow, everybody just pulling in the heat. This started off what was an epic franchise with so many great movies. We had the Puss in Boots spin-offs, such great stuff coming out of it, and Shrek was the originator of it all. Just a fantastic movie. At number 9 is the first How to Train Your Dragon movie. This is another movie, when it first came out, I was not expecting much from it. The trailer was interesting enough, so I went and saw it, and I was actually really blown away by it. It was just so much fun. I think Toothless, just one of the great anthropomorphic animals that you're putting out there that people love. Toothless is just so adorable and it's just fun, and their relationship between him and Jay Baruchel is so great in this movie. It's just such a stellar movie. I freaking love it. At number 8 is one of Pixar's finest achievements, and that is WALL-E. The first half hour of this movie, just absolutely not a word spoken. It's just beautiful pantomime romance right there between the two of them. It's just fucking classic cinema. It is so freaking good. WALL-E, one of the most adorable creatures ever put to film. Everything about this is just so stellar. And when it finally kicks into gear where he goes to space and they meet the humans and they start, and Eve and WALL-E have their torrid romance, like, it's just such a beautifully fun movie. I loved it when I saw it in theaters. I remember we saw it with a bunch of friends, and my one friend hated it, and everybody just berated him for the next 20 minutes. We're like, you're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. This still is the standard bearer for me. This is one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time. I absolutely love it. But a Pixar movie that's ahead of that is the first, obviously, Monsters, Inc. I fucking love Monsters, Inc. We're switching it up again, showing off the VHS. This is just an absolutely stellar movie. Seeing it in theaters, I just fucking loved it. I loved the world. I think it was so funny. Billy Crystal and John Goodman are so good together in this movie. The bits in it are hilarious. Everything about it is just so much fun. I think it's just such a stellar story, and it's just one of those movies you could put on over and over and over again, and it never tires. Number 6 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is just another movie that came out of nowhere for me. I wasn't expecting anything from this. I remember seeing the trailer and was like, oh, that looks neat. I really like the visual style, so it'd be cool to see that. And then it ended up being so much more. It ended up being one of the sleeper hits. I feel like when it did come out, everybody was blown away by it. I know at my theater, we were all just like, dude, what was that we just watched when we screened it? I fucking love it. Everything about it's funny. All of the crazy Spider-Man hanging around in it's so great. And at the core, it just tells a really fucking amazing story about what it means to be a hero in this day and age. Kicking off the top 5 is my personal favorite Shrek movie, and that is Shrek 2. Shrek might have kicked off the party, but goddamn does Shrek 2 just beat it in every way. Everything about this movie is absolutely hilarious, as the introduction of Puss in Boots, the whole gimmick with going to Far, Far Away, and all of the jokes that it has in it is absolutely stellar. And it has one of the greatest go over your head moment jokes as a kid that you will ever find. The whole scene where all the fairy tale creatures are watching Knights, a spinoff of Cops at home, and they see Shrek and Donkey and Puss in Boots getting arrested, and Donkey's just shouting police brutality, and they're finding a dime bag of kitty litter on Puss in Boots. It's just, it's so fucking good. And as a kid, you have no idea what's happening. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, they're getting arrested because that's the point of the story. And then as an adult, you're watching that and you're like, dear fucking God, that's one of the greatest jokes I've ever heard in my life. This movie is top notch. It's fucking amazing. In fourth place is one of the just weirdest and unique movies of all time, but it is just so fucking good. And that is Ratatouille, a movie about a rat that loves to cook, that ends up becoming friends with a human and using his hair to help him cook. Yes, that is the movie. And it is fucking amazing. I love that the final villain is just a food critic, and that the way he beats him is just making something that's so goddamn good that it just brings the food critic back to when he was a child eating one of those things, and just brings him back to warmer times. Like, it's just moments like that that are just so beautifully done and just so uniquely rendered as like a final villain. Like, it's incredible. It's amazing. I love this movie. I can watch it over and over and over again. Kicking off the top three, we're officially all in Pixar land now. The rest of these are all Pixar movies because I fucking love them. In number three is Finding Nemo. We talked about how much I just love the world and loving the characters of the Finding Nemo franchise when we were talking about Finding Dory. This is the cause for it. I remember seeing this with my girlfriend at the time, and I just absolutely loved it. I remember how big this was with it. This was probably the biggest Pixar movie to date when it came out. Like, everyone in school was talking about this. I think it was in 9th grade when it came out, and everybody was just quoting this movie left and right, like, mine, mine, mine. All the shit with Bruce the Shark and all that. Like, this had so much quotable moments in it. It was just an absolute just moment in the sun. People loved this movie. It was huge. It was everywhere. And you can see why it's still so beloved today, because it's just so fantastically done. Now, these next two were hard to figure out. 2 and 1. It was tough. It was tough. Both of these movies are just absolutely perfect in my eyes, and it was hard to pick them, but I think I figured it out. And our runner-up in second place is Inside Out. We talked before about Soul and how good Soul was at just inspiring this message into you that was just an important thing to learn as a person. This is a movie much like that it was just so important, I think, for the development of people to learn. And just the idea that you can have this movie that in a fun and inventive and exciting animated way teaches you what it's like to deal with your emotions and how you're going to confront things and just dealing with the overall changes in your life as you age. I think it's just so beautifully well done and just an absolutely stellar, perfect piece of cinema. I don't like the fact that they're making a sequel. I mean, if anyone's going to be able to make one that's going to be worth it and hopefully reach the levels of the first one, it is Pixar, but I'm still insanely nervous about there being a second one because this movie is absolutely perfect in my eyes. But there can only be one, and for me, my favorite animated movie of the 21st century is Toy Story 3. This is a movie came out right around when I was going to college. I'm going to put it down because it kind of hurts my arm as I talk and hold these up. But this movie, the Toy Story franchise, is probably the most interesting franchise to come out, at least for my generation, at least for my age. The first one came out in 1995. I was 6 years old. It was just perfectly timed to be a movie that was going to come out that I was going to love and enjoy and just be like, oh my God, look, toys. This is so cool. Toys come to life. This is awesome. And then the second one came out in 1999, right as I got a little bit older. I was 10 years old. And it was another one that was just a very fun adventure that you were just like, oh yeah, it's another good one. I just love the Toy Story characters. But then it all changed when the third one came out. The third one came out, it was I want to say it was right around 2010. So I was just about to turn 21. I was just coming to that age where I was reaching the end of college, and you're in that kind of a crossroads period where you're finally leaving behind firmly your childhood, because like you think you're an adult, but you're not really an adult at that point, like not really until you get out of college and you're in the world. So I was right on that threshold. So this was like the perfect movie to come around at that time and really have an important impact on my life and thinking about things in the way that I thought about things. Specifically talking about the ending of this movie, because most of this movie is just a fun adventure again where it's just the toys are getting back together and Woody's got to break them out. It's pretty much a prison escape movie for most of it. It's like Escape from Alcatraz most of the movie, which is really fun. And then you hit that last 10 minutes of the movie and these toys are ready to die together and they accept their fate, and then they're saved and they realize that as long as they're together, like the family is good, that we'll be okay. And then Andy realizes at this point, as he goes to give these toys away to this young girl, Bonnie, then it's okay to play with them, and he's accepting. And then she finds Woody, and she loves Woody and Buzz, and she's not ready to let go of Woody because it's the last piece of his childhood that he's holding on to. And then he realizes that he finally has to accept that this time in his life is over and he needs to move on to the next stage of his life, and he firmly lets go of the Woody and leaves it for a new generation of kids to play with as he sets on to the next part of his life. And as somebody who was just coming out of college and about to dawn on to the next part of his life and leaving behind that portion of his life that was just childhood and school and growing up and figuring out who you want to be, that was a really important thing to see at that point in my life. And I think that is what I love the most about Pixar, is that they make these movies that have this emotional impact on you in your life, because depending on the time when you see them, depending on the age you are when they come out, they teach you things about yourself and about the world around you and about a life that you're coming into that will help you as you move on. And they do it in just a fun, animated way. They do it in a way that you don't even realize it's happening at first. And I think that is one of the most impressively creative things that any storyteller has done in a lot of the movies that I've seen. Like, I think that is such a beautifully well done and incredibly inventive thing that it makes me believe that they are the greatest storytellers on the planet right now. Not just for animation, just for stories, because that is an incredibly difficult and impressive thing to do, especially as I've gone on and learned a lot of the intricacies of writing and being a screenwriter and working within that realm and creating stories out of thin air like that. That is an impressively hard thing to do. And the fact that they continue to do it movie after movie and just knock it out of the park and continue to impart these life lessons on you. And it doesn't matter what age you are. They will do it for adults. They will do it for kids. They'll do it for teens. Like, I thought after Toy Story 3, I was like, that's it. Like, you know what? Like, that one was a moment in the sun. I was at the perfect age when that came out. And I'm accepting that now I'm moving on to the next stage. So all these other Pixar movies, while I'll love them, are more catered to the young kids now. And then Soul came out, and Soul spoke to me again in a way where it was like, I had to accept the fact where even if I never sold a script, if no one ever saw the light of day of any of my writing, be it any of the books that I work on and have written, any of the scripts that I've done, any of my writing, if no one ever saw it, that did not mean that it did not have value and it wasn't a part of who you were. And I had to learn that and accept that and understand that. And that was a beautiful thing to still come out. And I was just like, man, I thought I was done having Pixar teach me things. And here I was as like a 20, almost 30-year-old person, and Pixar was still teaching me lessons to learn in my life. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that movies can do, is that they are impressionable on you and they teach you things and they help you formulate yourself as a person. And no matter what age you are as you go forward. And that, I think, is one of the most powerful things about cinema, and is one of those things that I always look to and I always explain to people when they ask me why I watch so many movies, why I love movies, and why movies are such an important part of my life. And that'll do it for us here at The Outpost. And this time, that was a huge list to go through, some of my favorite animated movies of the 21st century. I wonder how many of them are yours as well. Let me know down below. Let me know what you love out of the animated movies. What have been some of your favorites that have come out? What has had the best impact on you animated wise? And I'll see you down the line for the next one. Next one will be comedies. We'll be getting into some hilarious classics. We won't be talking such heady themes as aging and existentialism and all that stuff that we did in some of these movies. So we'll be getting into just the hoorah hilariousness of the comedy realm. But that'll do it for all of us here at The Outpost tonight. Until the next adventure, you have been you, I have been me. These are the movies that we love so much, and I'll see you at the movies.